Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Voices for Change 2.0, the only podcast that focuses on mental health while mixing in movies, music, books, sports, and pop culture. Here are your hosts, Rebecca and Joe Lombardo.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today at Voices for Change 2.0. Yes, it is 2.0 because it's a different version of the show than what originally was put out, and I had received some questions about that during the week last week, so I wanted to specify that, yes, it really is supposed to be called 2.0. We're not changing it to 3.0.
Yeah, we're not doing anything like that anytime soon. Thanks for joining us, you guys. Thanks for tuning in, taking time out of your busy days to listen to our humble little show, as I like to say. And, good morning. Welcome to whatever the hell day it is in July 2018. And
it's the 14th, my love.
Oh, thank you. It's Saturday the 14th. Dun, dun, dun. And, year is already half over, and, for those of us that are politically minded, we're not that far away from midterm elections. I know we don't talk about politics on this show all that much, but, just a reminder, get out and vote if you want to make change to the messed up stuff you're seeing in our country today. Okay, getting off my soapbox.
Mm-hmm. So we have some exciting news.
Yes.
A few months ago now, I guess it's been. I have absolutely no concept of time, but our show was actually picked up by iHeartRadio. I had to put in a request for them to take a look at it, and they said yes. So that's really exciting because that's an even bigger audience that we're reaching. And I received an email just this past week that Spotify has also picked us up. And, that's not something where we're paying for it or anything like that. It really was an actual, we're going to start putting you on our airwaves.
They sought us out.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And, the only thing that we can say, speaking to that, is thank you. Thank you to the wonderful guests that we have had on in the past and that we are continuing to have on, including today's guest. And thank you to our wonderful listeners that have stuck through us through thick and thin and really helped to make this the show that it is. And to that end, if you ever want to call into the show and say hi or, comment on whatever subject it is we're talking about that day, the number is 347-989-0126. We'd love to hear from you.
And also there's a chat box if you're on the Blog Talk website listening to the show. If you see a scrolling box of photos, underneath there's a chat room box where Scott, our producer, monitors. Thank you.
Welcome,
That's what I was looking for. And he will let us know if anybody is in there. So please feel free to hop on. If you don't want to make the call, you can go in the chat room and send us some questions. So
yeah. So there's that stuff.
And the other important thing that I wanted us to talk about was I just read yesterday that 2 states have finally made it mandatory for mental health training in schools, and one of them is kindergarten through.
Yes, New York and Virginia are the 2 states. In New York, they've made mandatory mental illness education from kindergarten through 12th grade, and in Virginia, it's mandatory for grades 9 and 10, and we just think that that's awesome.
Yeah, we're very excited about that, and I still have my petition. It's died down quite a bit, but I haven't gotten rid of it. So if you guys think it's something that you want brought to your area, maybe you can sign my petition, which is at my website, RebeccaLombardo.com.
Yes. So. This is definitely something we're passionate about, getting education out there. That's one way we're going to combat the stigma associated with mental illness and generating a positive mental health for everybody involved. You know, and it's to the point where we have to talk about it with the little ones. You know, going as far down as kindergarten. You know, the article that I read, you know, said, you know, we show kids how to recognize things such as, you know, symptoms of cancer and, you know, different things like that. You know, it's important that they learn what to look for, you know, and, you know, especially in their friends. You know, if their friends are starting to suffer from mental illness. I mean, we've said tons of times on this show that, you know, it seems to manifest itself, you know, during the course of puberty. Yeah. You know, and, you know, they kind of reiterated that in the article that I read. So, you know, good on you, New York, and good on you, Virginia. Well done, guys.
Absolutely. So that's going to bring us to our guest for today. And I know we are both really excited to talk to her. She has been you couldn't even just say just a really good friend, because it's been so above and beyond that. You know, she's an author, and we'll talk more about her book in a little bit. She's a mental health advocate, and
she's an all-around awesome sweetheart.
She really is. She is one of my favorite people online, out of, you know, the several that I talked to. So we just want to welcome Dyane Harwood to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. And thanks for not calling me Dyane Hardwood, which a lot of people do, even though I feel like you're a close friend of mine, but close friends have done that. Hardwood, no.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
You know, especially when the kids get a hold of that one.
As long as they don't call me hardhead, you know, I'm down with it. But you too, I was listening really closely to what you were just talking about, and it is actually related to everything, my book, my life. I hope you don't mind if I just jump in.
Our first question for you was, where does your mental health journey begin? So you can jump right in from there.
Awesome. Well, it's related. It's related to that question. I have, as you guys know, I have two daughters, and one of them is 10, and the other one is 13. And just over the past few years, I've been exposed to some just really sobering situations, mainly with my older daughter. Not so much with her, but with her close friends. And I won't name any names, obviously, but in terms of mental health issues, they are incredibly disturbing to hear about, and I hate how there's no education about this in their elementary school and their middle school. Like, one of her friends does self-harm, and she expresses thoughts of suicide often. And my daughter has walked her over to the counselor's office. This is a 12 and 13-year-old doing this. When I was 12 or 13, all I cared about was playing, like, Pac-Man, you know, and Space Invaders and Centipede. I didn't have friends talk about mental health stuff. And it's bittersweet in a way. I mean, I'm glad that my daughter is sensitive and aware of mental health issues, and to take her friends' problems seriously enough to do something about it. But when I was that age, like I said, I was totally oblivious. And during that time, I was living with my parents. My dad had bipolar I disorder, and he had an extreme case of it. I mean, who doesn't, right, with bipolar I? And we didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about it much in my house. I didn't even know. I mean, they called it back then, they called it manic depression. This was in the 70s and 80s, right? And I just saw that he had am I allowed to curse on this show, you guys? I should have clarified that before.
Yes, except for F-bombs.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you know what? I'll be clean and pure, because you inspire me. He had a boatload of pills on his armoire, and all different kinds of bottles, and lithium, Valium, all kinds of stuff I didn't recognize, and it just wasn't in the social awareness back then, right? I mean, there's nothing. So now it has gotten a lot better, because I always have people ask me, do you think things are getting better? And, of course, there's a huge way to go. But compared to 1978, things have gotten a lot better. But, yeah, I mean, so all these things came up for me while I was listening to you speak, and I can't believe that California isn't one of those. Sorry, that's my stupid cell phone alarm, you guys. I'm so sorry.
We don't hear it.
Oh, good. I mean, isn't it crazy that not all of the states, especially California, which I like to think is a little bit more progressive, we don't have that here, you know?
No.
So I'll retweet whatever you two tweet. I've already signed the petition. I'll get my whole family to sign it, whatever it takes to get this happening. Because my daughter, she has anxiety issues. She has been affected by my bipolar disorder, and so she has her own problems. But compared to her friend, my daughter's never expressed wishes to do self-harm or suicide or anything like that. Thank God. So
that's definitely gotta be a relief for you.
Hard road to hoe.
Yeah. You know, and it's and she's right in that wheelhouse where all these things start to manifest. You know, I mean, and I think that's one. It's a double-edged sword, but it's a good thing that it's so much in the forefront now that people are starting to really recognize what this stuff looks like, and you know, take action about it and not be as afraid, you know, because, you know, I think back even, you know, I'll use something from our life. Back when Beck and I first met, you know, and this was late 90s, you know, 98, 99. And, you know, she was going through, you know, dealing with bipolar disorder and, you know, her anxiety and all this stuff. I was not mature enough at that time to handle it, to understand, to be a help. I got scared, and I actually stopped talking with her for a while, you know, and I'm embarrassed by that now. You know, I really am. You know, I'm embarrassed and I'm ashamed of it, you know, but, you know, the fact that we did reconnect and, you know, I grew up in that time between us talking, you know, enough that I recognized, you know, what an amazing woman she is that's sitting next to me. And, you know, that she is so much more than her illnesses, you know, that, you know, I wanted to learn, I wanted to help, and I wanted to be there for her, and I wanted to be a stabilizing agent in her life. And, you know, sometimes that does take some growth, and being able nowadays to address it and, you know, have it, like I said, have it be out there and be socially acceptable to talk about and everything. It's a huge difference, you know, and I think we're just going to keep making inroads to it. I think I might have actually lost my original point.
That's okay.
In
my
rambling. It's okay, I'm with you. No, it's just, I mean, I'm sorry. Oh, God.
No, go ahead, Diane. What were you going to say?
What were you going to say?
Oh, I just was thinking, like, Rebecca, you kept telling me that we're going to have fun during this podcast, and I'm finding myself smiling, it's just nice. That's all. I'm just on a little high, but even though we're talking about incredibly serious stuff, I mean, I don't mean to sound all Pollyanna, like, oh, yes, things are so much better, but I'm just saying, like, I think things are better than they used to be, but I'm still, I'll be totally honest with you guys, I have problems telling people I have bipolar disorder. As far as I've come, you know, I don't like talking about it in the real world. I mean, I've gotten up and done author talks, and it's amazing I didn't pass out during them, but I've done it there. But there it was already expected that everyone knew, right? Everyone knew it was right. I knew everyone knew. But if I'm just in a social situation, it's not something I really want to talk about. And I feel like I don't really deserve the advocate title these days, and I need to kind of re-earn it. Because I go through fits and starts with this identity. Sometimes I am really proud that I'm doing fairly well, you know, having this chronic illness. And other times I feel like, you know what, you know, and I don't feel good about myself. And I know on Twitter, the conversation lately, there's been some people who call themselves high functioning. And I just don't think I could ever say that about myself because, A, I'm totally superstitious, and I always feel like I'll relapse. I feel like I can't just say, oh, yeah, I'm doing great now, and I'm always going to be doing great. I think that's obnoxious, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side of things, I do want to get stronger so that I can deal with crisis when it happens, because it's inevitable. I have an elderly mother who I love, who's 82, and she's obviously not going to live another 100 years, right? So I know I'm going to fall apart when she passes away. How can I get stronger so I can not fall apart as much as I have in the past? Like when my dad died, I became suicidal and I had to be hospitalized. I don't want that to happen again. I don't want to be away from my family and my dog, my baby dog, again, who was not around when my dad died. My dog has really helped me with my life. Don't let me start talking about that, Becca, because you know I could spend an hour talking about my dog.
Yeah, well, the it's nice that you bring up your dog too, because you know, pets really are intuitive when it comes to the struggles that we go through. I mean, you've seen. And I know we promised that we weren't going to talk about our cats today, babe. But
no, you can. I don't care. That's fine. I love your cat.
But our cat Haley is very much. I mean, she could have been a therapy cat with the way she handles, you know, Beck's low times, especially. I mean, she's right by her side for her, you know. And I saw someone else post. I think it was on Twitter. He posted about his cat helping him deal with. You know, his ups and downs and his bipolar disorder, you know, and that was really cool to see, because it just kind of reaffirms that whole thing with animals. You know, I mean, we're really blessed with them, and, you know, I don't know what humans did to deserve, you know, dogs and cats.
I honestly, I keep using that word. That just shows, like, I'm coming out to you, too. I've done other podcasts, but I didn't tell everyone everything. But here, I'm going to tell you everything. I honestly believe, prepare yourself. If I had my dog, I've only had her for 4 years, and I think if I'd had her for longer time than that, I wouldn't have gone as low as I did. I really think that. That's how much she's helped me, and I say that with all seriousness. I've always had dogs. My dad always had dogs, crazy Irish setters. And I love them, but I never really felt the power of a dog as much as with this one. And she's not perfect. She has some problems. Her name's Lucy, which is the #1 popular female dog name in the United States. Apparently, my daughter's named Lucy, and her name. But I just, you know, what I'm trying to say here is I think that animals help us more than we realize, although you two really seem to understand that. And again, on the internet lately, there's been a lot of articles saying, you know, be careful if you get an animal, because it's a lot of responsibility, and don't jump into it, which is true. I really do feel like it's like having a child. I'm not kidding. But on the other hand, I don't see enough articles that are, you know, that refute that. I think there needs to be more like that, because that's how wonderful she's been to me. So
maybe I could write something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could write something and quote you.
Oh, you write it. Oh, good. I thought you wanted me to write it. I'm like, no, thank you.
Rebecca, that's a lot of pressure. Come on, lady. Don't make me write it.
No. I mean, that's an important article and needs to be done well. I actually was tempted for a second to just do a comment on, like, BP Magazine's website, because one of the bloggers wrote about it, about the, you know, it was the cautionary post about having a pet. And I was like, you know what, to do this right, this would take me all day, seriously, and I just don't have the energy right now, you know, to do this. So hey, Becca, if you do it, you can quote me as much as you want. So.
Okay.
So I'm
all
sorry.
Right, so...
I know I'm going all over the place. I'm sorry, everybody. I just am excited. What can I say?
No problem. You don't sound any different than I do on any given Saturday.
So. or other day.
So let's kind of jump back into the questions that we've got for you.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about PMAD and the side effects?
I'll try to talk a little bit. Yes. Well, you can just gong me. You guys need a gong or like a guitar lick. Stop talking. Now, you're talking about postpartum bipolar disorder, right?
Yes.
Yes? My affliction. Yes, I'd love to talk about it, and I will try to keep it brief because it's not as complex as it sounds. But basically, postpartum bipolar disorder is just kind of the layperson's term for something in the DSM-5, which is called bipolar peripartum onset. And all it means is that a woman's bipolar disorder has been triggered by childbirth or pregnancy. So, and mine's a really interesting case. And the reason I wrote my book was to get the word out about this because A, there was no book written about this particular flavor of bipolar disorder. That was the main reason I wanted to write the book. And B, I did have all kinds of bizarre things happen that I wanted to share. And also I grew up with a father who I was really close to, and I know, Rebecca, you can relate to that. I mean, I loved my dad so much, and I grew up seeing how bipolar disorder affected him. And the difference between his bipolar and mine is that he didn't get pregnant, which is good.
Yeah, and that would be impressive if he had. But.
It would have been. It would have been a very, very wonderful best-selling book. It would have hit New York Times. But he was diagnosed early on. He was a really gifted violinist with the Los Angeles Philharmonic. He went to Juilliard. I mean, he had a Fulbright scholarship. I could go on and on. I wasn't in his stratosphere. I was just kind of like a regular run-of-the-mill person. And but I grew up around greatness. And interestingly enough, a lot of his colleagues in the orchestra also had bipolar disorder, including his band partner, and she went taking her own life by suicide. And no one really talked about it. No one said, "Oh, Dyane, this is what happened." And my dad and I did start to have conversations later on, but I'll save that for later, like when I was older, obviously. But yeah, my kind of bipolar disorder is not postpartum psychosis, which has been talked about a lot in the news. There are some distinct differences, but they can overlap, which is where it makes it confusing for the general public to know what is what. And the main difference is, and I know you two could probably figure it out in a heartbeat, it's just with regular bipolar, I'll back up. With postpartum psychosis, the hallmark symptoms are where you have delusions or strange beliefs, you have hallucinations where you see things that aren't really there, or you hear things that aren't there, and you can be really paranoid and suspicious. And then tragically, you've heard of the big cases in the news where these poor mothers are so ill that they take their own lives and their children's lives and things like that. So those are the headline cases. Postpartum bipolar disorder it basically has all the same symptoms as regular bipolar disorder, bipolar 1. I had the manic episodes. After my daughter was born, I became hypomanic. Literally, within 24 hours, I had been up all night in labor, so I didn't sleep. My hormones were all out of whack, and I also had the genetic predisposition with my father's bipolar disorder. So I call it the perfect storm. I mean, I was primed. And there had been clues. I actually showed signs earlier than that I had the vulnerability for bipolar disorder, which now that I look back on it, it all is, of course, makes perfect sense. It's like a crime. You can go back and see all the things that led up to what took place. But I'll make it quick because I realize I'm just talking. But just
I used to.
Thank you. I used to, in my early 20s, my first big grown-up job was helping at music festivals where we had headliners like Etta James and just, famous people, Willie Nelson, people like that in Silicon Valley. And I was in charge of organizing the food vendors and the arts and crafts vendors. So I had stayed up all night marking off on a lawn in San Jose, 10 by 10 squares with chalk for these booths, okay? These food booths and these 70s arts and crafts booths. And because I didn't sleep that night, it made me manic. And I'd never, I started just acting really crazy. I talk about it in the book. I didn't do anything terrible, thank God. But I totally, if you guys were there with me, you'd be like, Dyane, you definitely have some problems. We need to get you help right now. But, again, nobody picked up on it. They just thought I was acting really kind of funny. Right, and then it subsided because I was so exhausted the next few days. I slept really, really well, and my brain just kind of simmered down. And a similar thing happened later on. So it would kind of bubble up if I didn't sleep, or if I had too much sugar and it would bubble back down. But it was the childbirth that really triggered it for me. So
because of
I didn't know.
all the hormone changes and all that stuff.
Yeah. Wow. But no one. This is the big thing in the perinatal mental health field these days. It's all about doing mental health screening with pregnant women to make sure my kind of thing doesn't happen or anyone else's perinatal mood disorder doesn't take place if possible. Where they just say, do you have a family history? Like if someone said to me, Dyane, do you have a family history of bipolar disorder? Like we're talking like OBGYN doctor when I was pregnant. And I'd say, yeah, my dad had it. And then they'd be like, okay, well, we're going to really watch you right after you have a baby to make sure you don't have signs of mania or depression. How long did that conversation just take? 30 seconds, right?
Yeah, right.
It wasn't standard, and it is starting to change now. Again, like stigma, it's getting better, but it's not universal yet. So it's just, it is what it is. I can get angry about it or whatever. But that's another thing. It's like I don't want women to go through what I went through because I am an extreme case. I don't know if you want to get into that.
We'll get into it on the other side of our first break, which we are due to take. So yeah, nice. How about that for a segue?
That was very smooth.
So, thank you. Been working on it. So we're going to be listening to Blake McIver with Mother.
Perfect. Oh gosh.
Frigid, torrid, loving, me.
Mother told me, listen, child, my beauty is the sea, and my anger makes it wild. A star will burn until it dies. My earth will shake until I make all my children cry. Mother, heal me. Mother, nurture me. Mother, please don't torture me. Mother, help me when I cry. Mother, froze and watched me die. Mother said unto the king, your life is marked, ordained to be an offering. She followed him until the end. Upon his grave a risen soul she would defend. Mother, heal me. Mother, nurture me. Mother, please don't torture me. Mother, help me when I cry. Mother, froze and watched me die. Mother called across the block. You crave my love. Come hither, let me at that. Her glamour had you hypnotized. She took your soul, but in the end she compromised. Oh, yeah. Mother, heal me. Mother, nurture me. Mother, please don't torture me. Mother, help me when I cry. Mother, froze and watched me die.
40s, she's safe to think.
Mother, mother,
She's Notre Dame, she's Vietnam.
mother, heal me. Mother, nurture me. Mother, please don't torture me. Mother, held me when I cried. Mother, froze and watched me.
Hey, welcome
back.
That song ended differently than I expected it to.
Yeah, that was abrupt, but we're good with it. So welcome back to Voices for Change 2.0. I'm Joe. The beautiful, vivacious, wonderful woman sitting next to me is Rebecca, and she's shaking her head right now. And we have on the line the wonderful, lovely, and talented Dyane Harwood.
Hi.
Hi.
I will be quiet now and let you ask me questions.
How's it going?
How's it going so far for you, Dyane? How do you feel?
Oh, my God. I'm so happy to be with you, too. I feel like I'm with really consummate professionals, yet you're my close friends. That's how I feel.
Aww.
I feel like I'm being
Thank
taken
you.
care of. I'm being taken care
Good.
of, so I'm in good hands.
And incidentally, this was kind of mentioned during the break when we were in crosstalk, but yeah, we've considered moving out west and talked about it many times, and that
Probably not California, though.
I would be open to
come
California.
No, I don't think I can handle. I can't handle New York City. I don't think I'll be able to handle California.
I think it all depends on where you are in California, because it's not all like L.A. You know,
Right.
you
Don't
don't
go
live
to L.A.
near-
Don't go to L.A.
Yeah, I've been to
So
L.A. and I like L.A. Don't get me wrong. I love L.A. It's great, you know. But you know, knowing my wife the way I do, I think she needs a little bit more of a laid back area, which is why we live in Detroit. But
we live in Detroit because we were born in Detroit.
Yeah, I know.
There's no way around that.
Yeah. So, Scott is telling us that where Dyane is not as crowded at all, and there's a beach and roller coasters.
Oh,
Yep.
well, that sells it for me.
Well, you know, have you ever seen The Lost Boys, the classic vampire movie?
Yeah.
The
Oh,
Lost
yeah.
Boys.
Oh, yeah.
It was filmed here, people. It was filmed here. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
very cool.
I'm terribly afraid of heights and roller coasters, so I'm sorry,
you don't
Scott.
you don't have to go on a roller coaster. I'll be with you.
Yeah, I feared vampires that look like Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah, really.
So that's fine.
That's a pretty
fine.
scary movie.
That's pretty much his actual face now, though. He doesn't even have to work at it. He just kind of looks like it. They should do another movie.
Don't hate on Kiefer. He's good.
He's old now. What are you talking about? I haven't seen a picture of him lately. I just think of him as, eternally a vampire, like he's 20.
Well,
he's old now.
Funny you say that because vampires are eternal.
Right.
Yeah. Immortal.
But let's just talk about that. No, I'm just kidding. Let's talk about the comparing vampires to bipolar disorder.
At least he wasn't shiny.
Hey. Let's leave Twilight off the table, okay?
Well, okay, let me give you this is related to our topic, just a 30-second plug. Where I live, I don't live right next to the roller coasters anymore. I talk all about this in my book, by the way. I talk about where I lived and where I live now. I'm about 15 minutes away up in the redwoods, in the mountains, where it's a totally different atmosphere, where I can go walking in the redwoods and do that trendy forest bathing thing, where you just nice peaceful walk. So that's why you should move here.
Yeah, I would be all about that. Not to mention, I think the redwoods up there is where they filmed Return of the Jedi. So again, I'm down for that.
They did. I think they did it. Yeah, they might have done it in Big Basin. That's something I'm going to have to Google later. I heard they have filmed other movies up in the woods up there, like some weird movies. But they did a Michael Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But actually, that does fascinate me. That fascinates me. I grew up around the movie business, so I'm always fascinated by it. Yeah.
So you did want to try to get in a little bit of talk about your ECT experience.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yes. Thank you. That's very related to it's really important. I mean, I credit ECT with saving my life, and I know it's incredibly controversial, and I've had people, come after me online about it and find out my email and email me about how horrible it is, and those are the anti-psychiatry people and the anti-ECT people. And but for me, I had it done when my dad died. I had been so close to him, and I already was rock bottom depressed, and that was just basically the last straw. I just felt like I had nothing to live for. And I said, my dad actually had ECT done at UCLA, and it didn't do anything to help him, but he didn't have any bad side effects either, because everyone was worried that he would lose his ability to play his Stradivarius. That was like the big worry, but he was fine. He was absolutely fine. It just didn't get rid of his depression. But with me, I said, bring it on. I said, I have no other thing. I don't know what else to do. I literally asked for it because I had heard it had helped this author named Martha Manning, who was a psychologist, who wrote a book about her experience with ECT called Undercurrents. And she had suicidal depression, and she said it saved her life. And I just thought, I remembered that, and I was like, please, can you give this to me? I didn't have any. I did have some short-term memory loss, and who knows? Maybe I've had more memory loss than I know, because how can I really know, right? But I was able to write a 300-page memoir. I was able to remember details about my childhood without relying on journals, because I had thrown out all my journals when I was depressed. And I literally had probably 100 journals. I threw them all away. And it totally, I felt good after I had it done. And the nurses were like tripping out on me. They saw me, I was like a success story, and they were really happy to see that. So I only had it done on one side. It's called unilateral. But then several years later, I got caught up in the whole, let's go off your meds, because meds are just making me into a zombie, and I don't think they work, and I want to try the natural way, blah, blah, blah. But at the time, I really did want to give it a good shot. So this is in the book too. I researched how to taper off meds. I spoke to experts, like world-renowned experts about it, and I started doing it, and I relapsed, and I became suicidal again, and I asked for ECT again. So I've had it 2 separate times, and again, it did help, but it didn't get rid of the treatment-resistant bipolar depression, which is something else I really would love to talk about before we're done, because I want to explain what really did finally help me.
Okay,
don't let me forget that.
Okay, I'll try to remember. Because I actually have treatment-resistant bipolar as well. So it's funny to me that the 20-plus years that people have been throwing medication at me that nobody ever suggested the ECT to me. It's never been on the table. And I don't know that I'd be that open to it, to be honest with you.
But that's not what did it. The ECT just got me out of the suicide. It's like, I'm going to go ahead and kill myself now feeling. Like, I'm going to do it. The ECT just got rid of that acute feeling. But I still was incredibly depressed after each thing. It just allowed me to, semi-function. But it saved my life, though. I was still living, but I was a living zombie, basically. Mm-hmm. So, no, what am I allowed to say with the magical? No, it's not magical.
Yeah.
What finally helped, and I had tried 25 different medications, probably more than that, to be honest, and nothing helped. I did take lithium, and lithium did help me as far as subdue the suicidal ideation, but I still was depressed. And finally, in 2013, which wasn't that long ago, I had a new psychiatrist, and he was super patient, but I could see he was kind of getting a little weary of seeing me try medication after medication and nothing. And finally he said, you know what, I want you to try something called an MAOI. And it's hard to say, monoamine oxidase inhibitor. And he said, I want you to try it in combination with your lithium. And I thought, whatever. It has food restrictions. They have not been a big deal for me at all. I had to stop drinking alcohol. That was fine. I didn't need alcohol.
You're right.
I can go into, I'm sorry, Joe, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, we're just agreeing.
Yep.
Right, thank you. I mean, yeah, I do miss getting buzzed on alcohol, but you know what? If it's between not, it's worth the sacrifice, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I took it, and it's called Parnate, but the generic is tranylcypromine, and that combined with lithium finally lifted it. It hasn't been perfect. There's fatigue associated with it, of course. There's always something, right? But it lifted it. It lifted it. I still get depressed, but it doesn't go as low. Nowhere near as low as it used to be. I still have problems. I still am hopeless sometimes, but that's life, right? I mean, there's a difference between the two. And so it's not like, I'm not saying this is some magical thing. I would really still like a cure. I would like to not have to take meds every day that make me tired and, and fat.
Right.
Yeah, I've kind of surrendered the fantasy on that concept.
It's like, that's a whole other, we could do an episode, you and me, about that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're beautiful in other cultures, in Hawaii. But yeah, I do like to name the medications that help me, because a lot of people don't. They're like, oh, I'm taking a medication that helps me, and they don't say what it is.
Well, I think it's just hard because once you name a particular medication and then say that person goes to their doctor and says, hey, I want you to put me on this, and then it doesn't help, it's kind of like, maybe I shouldn't have bothered telling them about it,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Well, I don't really talk too much about the specific medications that I'm on.
Well, it's like anything, really. It's, we all have different body chemistry, and
right.
It's like any other type of treatment. It's like cancer treatment. What works for person A doesn't necessarily work for person B. It does help, though, I think, getting the word out on what has helped. So I think it's perfectly fine that you've mentioned what it is that helped you, Dyane, because maybe it will help one of our listeners.
Yeah. So I'm so excited about it. I've had a few people tell me it's helped, but the big thing is, this is the thing I didn't say, and thank you, Joe, for those of that. I didn't know this, but I started researching these meds, and they've been around. Well, I'm sorry, I've been researching the MAOIs because we all know a lot about lithium, but it's been around since the 1940s, and it is that combination was used for treatment-resistant bipolar depression in some small studies that have been done. So it was specifically used for this, yet none of my other doctors thought to even just try it, and that's what pissed me off. I mean, just to try it, my dad took an MAOI. It didn't work for him, but then again, he was an alcoholic, and he ate the stuff he wasn't supposed to eat, like aged cheeses, which could have sent him into a stroke, which was not the smartest thing, Dad, if you're listening. Typical dad. My dad, that's totally him. But, so, with him, like you said, Joe, we're two different people, and he didn't, what worked for me didn't work for him. But I just wish someone had thought to bring it up. And my conspiracy theory is that these are not the newer drugs. Lithium, we know, is not new, and Parnate is not new. So the doctors most psychiatrists are not going to push them. That's my theory. Along with the aliens. Yeah. Just kidding. The aliens take them too.
Before we go off into aliens, let's see if we can talk about your book a little bit.
What book?
We've been alluding to it, but we haven't exactly mentioned what it was. So you want to tell people about what your book is called?
No, not really. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. This book, I have it right in front of me. It's called Birth of a New Brain, Healing from Postpartum Bipolar Disorder. And it is a memoir. It is about my life. But at the end, I also discussed in detail, like, the things that have helped me, different tools that have helped me. In detail. It's not just like a couple lines I go off. I even have a section about how to start a support group if you've ever been wanting to do that, and I explained I did that and I made a ton of mistakes, so I shared my mistakes that I made in starting facilitating the support group because there's no one around here there's no support groups where I live up here, so that's why I created one. And so it's like your book, Rebecca. It's just about my life. I just felt like I needed to share my experience and especially because most people don't know about postpartum bipolar disorder. And there's another thing. This is another reason. I also obviously define postpartum bipolar disorder at length in the book. In the appendix, I explain how it compares to the other perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, which, if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to rattle off them really quick so people know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Okay, here we go.
Absolutely.
I should make it into a jingle, but I shouldn't joke about it. Okay, I'm going to get struck down by lightning now. There's number one is antenatal, which is during pregnancy and postpartum depression. Number two is postpartum obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. 3 is postpartum psychosis. 4 is postpartum PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. 5 is postpartum panic disorder. 6, postpartum anxiety disorder. And last but not least, my kind, postpartum bipolar disorder or bipolar peripartum onset. So there's quite a few of these that are going on. So I do discuss
so now
that
before you, excuse me, I gotta clear my throat here. Before you wrote your book, and before you had a child, were you dealing with any types of depression or anxiety or anything, or were you kind of blindsided by it?
That's such an excellent question. I'm glad you asked that. I did have depression, and I wrote about it at length in the book. And it was situational depression, breakups, not knowing what I wanted to do with my life, just only going for dead end type jobs, unfulfilling jobs, all that kind of stuff. And I did seek treatment with a psychiatrist, but actually a couple of them, but none of them said, I think you might have bipolar disorder brewing. They put me on Paxil to begin with, and I tried a few other things. So yeah, I did have it, but not to the point where people were like, okay, we think you're going to have something more serious later on, or, and I've always had anxiety. I grew up in a violent household, unfortunately. I love my parents. I don't mean to talk smack about them, but they, my mom was dealing with my dad's bipolar, illness and alcoholism, his attempt to self-medicate it, and so he would drink and get violent with her, and she would get violent back. So I grew up, physically separating the two of them from beating each other up as best I could. That causes anxiety, and that's never gone away. That's never gone away. And it, I should thank you for reminding me, Rebecca, you little mind reader. In the book, I've had terrible anxiety. I write about it in the book. I became addicted to benzodiazepines and alcohol, and I discuss in the book what happened with that. I had some really frightening wake-up calls when I was taking benzos that I discussed in one of the chapters. It's called Benzos and Booze or something like that. So I've been through a lot. This is why I have wrinkles. And the irony, I have to tell you guys this, the irony is I used to be really into health. I was a ACE certified personal trainer in my late 20s for a couple of years, where I trained people how to use gym equipment, and I was really into healthy, lifestyle. I never drank. Mm-hmm. I didn't drink until I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
Was that kind of like you sort of following how your dad had treated it?
Yeah.
Was that kind of the thinking there?
Yeah, I think. I mean, it could have been subconscious, but I totally think so. And the thing is with him, he liked the taste of red wine, but I thought it was really disgusting tasting it, so I would just guzzle it. I would just drink it, and tequila. I would just drink it just for the after effect. It wasn't because I was enjoying the experience. It was just to get that numbing.
They make better tasting stuff out there.
I know.
just
I
saying.
know they do. I know. I've tried some. Huh?
Have you tried a mudslide?
No, I haven't. But I live in Santa Cruz. They have all these wineries here with high-end wines. In fact, get this. They even sent a bottle to the royal wedding. They had one of the bottles. Yes. That's how good it is here. So, but I haven't tried a mudslide.
No, I'm kidding about that. We shouldn't make light, but
if you can't make light, then I think life is pretty grim. No, that's fine as long as listeners don't be offended, please.
No, I'm chuckling because, the couple of times I've had tequila in my life, I was, just violently repulsed by it, and not a fan of wine myself, so I gotta chuckle out of that you're like, I didn't enjoy the taste, I would just guzzle it. So
well, we're an alcohol-free household here now, and my daughters look at it as like something really evil, and I don't want them to have that extreme. I don't want them to think that either. I want them to look at it in a different way, but we'll work on that. I don't want them to become alcoholic either.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
That was kind of the household I was brought up in, where it was kind of demonized, but I think that had more to do with my grandmother's response to my one uncle was an alcoholic for a lot of years, and so anytime I'd go out with my friends, even back in high school, she'd be like, "Don't drink," and it was never, I was around it, but I never felt compelled to do it. It just wasn't my bag. So
that's good.
So are there any coping skills that you think that you could put out there for our listeners during something as difficult as what you went through?
Yes. And I do, here we go, another plug for the book, but I do list them all in the back. At length, I even have this psychiatrist, a totally awesome psychiatrist, Dr. Mohammed Al-Sweden. He contributed a whole section about exercise for mood stability because even though that's my background, I studied it. He works with a lot of patients with bipolar disorder. So I go into that in the book, and he does it himself, even though he doesn't have bipolar disorder. So I'm not doing what he suggests right now because it's hard. It's hard. It's super easy. It's just easy instructions where you have to go 6 to 7 days a week for 30 minutes. You choose an exercise you like, and you have to break a sweat for 30 minutes and not be able to talk much with anybody. And that's super hard to do. It sounds so easy. But I've done it. I've had bouts where I would stick with it for a long time, and then I get sick, or I'm too stressed out or whatever, and I don't do it. But having my dog, you guys, Lucy totally needs to, she is unfortunately overweight and she has to get out and move. So having my dog gets me out, even though I don't do the brisk as Al-Sweden recommends sometimes. I at least get out and I move. So that's actually one of my biggest things because even when I'm feeling really horrible and depressed or whatever, if I get out with her and start walking, I do feel it does help. I'm not going to lie, it totally helps me. It's just hard to get out the door. Especially because we don't drive somewhere. We're up on a dangerous street, and so I kind of feel bad because I'm harming the environment. But whatever. You have to rationalize things sometimes. So it's not easy for me to do that. And then other things as far as I've been asked a lot about supplements I take. I've done the whole fish oil thing. I haven't been doing that lately. I will do a little plug for something that's new that I'm still kind of working my way around, but. In February, I broke my jaw when I was out walking my dog. And
Thanks.
I'm going to tell all your wonderful listeners, don't do what I did, people. Do not look at your cell phone when you're walking your dog, okay? Take my trip like I did and break your jaw.
Oh, my God.
That's free advice.
Yikes.
And when I was laid up feeling sorry for myself, I watched a documentary on Netflix called What the Health. I just started watching it, and I was bored, whatever. But I won't go into the details, but basically watching that movie changed my life and made me decide to stop eating meat and dairy, which is huge because I've always eaten those things. So I've done I'm calling myself a vegan even though I don't like that word. Now the other term that's used a lot is called plant-based, whole food plant-based eating, which is not the same exactly, but you can look that up online. But I do feel better. That's been helping me. I just feel better in general. But I'm still working my way around it, and the rest of my family thinks I'm a pain in the butt a little bit, so it's not easy to do.
Yeah, that's I've experienced that too with having certain things that need to be left off my diet, but going to having the family over and they want pizza and cake.
Yeah.
So.
And you're like, I'll sit here with my stick of celery.
Yeah.
While you eat that delicious chocolate cake.
Oh,
Yeah, I've been
that's
there.
really, really hard. That's hard. I feel you. And so I'm still, I'm doing it. I just mainly, to be honest, again, my honesty is just coming to the surface with you two. I mainly did it because of the things that I saw done to animals. And I won't go into it. Believe me, I've been screamed at in this household by my entire family for discussing it with them. It's not so much for the health, and God knows I haven't lost weight. Even though a lot of people say they do lose weight, I've actually put weight on, but I feel good about not eating stuff, So that's why I did it.
But I get that.
Thank you. It's hard.
Well,
that's all. That's
unfortunately, Diane, we've reached the end of our show for today. That went by really fast.
Yeah, it did. It went by really fast.
Thank you, you guys.
So we hope you've had a good time here chatting with us. But stay on the line, and we'll be right back with you. And ladies and gents listening to the show, you'll be enjoying a cover of Katy Perry's Rise that was done by Scott Hoying, Mitch Grassi, Brian Justin Crumb, and friends.
Nice.
Yeah.
I won't
so enjoy.
Survive. Oh, you will see me thrive. Can write my story. I'm beyond the archetype. I won't just conform, no matter how you shake my core, 'cause my roots they run deep. Oh, you have so little faith. Don't doubt it. Oh, victory is in my veins. I know it. And I will not negotiate.
Don't miss the Mental Health Memoir of the Year, It's Not Your Journey. It's Not Your Journey is the true story of one woman's 20-year battle with mental illness and her recovery from a suicide attempt in 2013. Rebecca Lombardo candidly reveals her real and raw emotions in dealing with depression, bipolar disorder, the loss of her mother and brother, and more. Pick it up today on Amazon.com or visit www.RebeccaLombardo.com for more information.
Join us next week as Rebecca and Joe continue to battle the stigma of mental illness. Follow us on Twitter at Voices for Change RJ and on Facebook at Voices for Change 2.0.